So, we're going to dive into a story that it's really fascinating because it doesn't start with a powerful man's rise, but with his fall. And it raises this huge question. What happens to the family you leave behind? You know, the night Hermann Göring cheated the hangman's noose. Well, his story ended right there. But for his wife, Emmy, and his little girl, Edda, a whole new, terrifying chapter was just getting started. So, let's dig into that. How did the House of Göring crumble? We're talking about a fall from unimaginable privilege to absolute ruin, and it all happened in just a few weeks. I mean, the speed of this downfall is just staggering, right? Imagine this. One day, you're living at Hall, this massive, opulent estate with its own private zoo and movie theater, and then, boom, the next day, you're a prisoner, under military guard, with everything you own confiscated. Just like that. And for a 7-year-old kid, Edda, the whiplash must have been unbelievable. To go from a life of servants and being treated like a princess to a cold, guarded room just clutching a tiny suitcase. You know, Allied personnel who saw her said she was quiet, really polite, but she just kept asking the same question over and over. When can I see my daddy? Okay, so Hermann Göring is out of the picture, but the story doesn't end. The legal system in post-war Germany, it turns its gaze to the people he left behind. And at the top of that list was his wife, Emmy, who was a very, very public figure. So, in 1948, a German court gives Emmy this official label, Belastete, which means major offender. See, they didn't just see her as some passive wife. Oh no. Their argument was that her role as the glamorous First Lady of the Reich was actually crucial. She helped make the whole Nazi regime look normal, even respectable. And the sentence they handed down, it was brutal. I mean, look at this. They took away all her property, banned her from ever working in the public sector, stripped her pension. The goal here was crystal clear. It wasn't just about taking their money. It was about completely dismantling any shred of public influence they had left, wiping them off the map of German public life. But here's the thing. Despite the court's verdict, despite, well, all of history, Emmy never backed down. In her memoir, she painted her husband as a loving, compassionate man. She stuck to that story right up until she died in 1973. And in doing so, she basically set the stage, creating this pattern of absolute, unshakable loyalty that her daughter, Edda, would follow. So that brings us to Edda. She represents the first of two totally different ways to deal with a legacy like this. This is the story of a daughter's loyalty. And you have to understand the world she came from. We're talking about a level of privilege that's hard to even wrap your head around. Hitler himself was her godfather. She got priceless paintings as birthday gifts. The Luftwaffe, the German Air Force, literally built her a miniature palace to play in. She wasn't just a child, she was the little princess of the Third Reich. So after all that was gone, what did she do? Well, she built a surprisingly quiet life for herself. She worked as a medical technical assistant, never married, had no kids. But, and this is a huge but, she never ever changed the Göring name. For her, it was a badge of identity, something to hold on to, not something to be ashamed of. And whenever anyone would press her about her father's crimes, her answer was always the same. She would just say she remembered a loving father. That one sentence really says it all, doesn't it? It defined her entire life. In her mind, the public monster and the private father were two completely different people, period. But that raises a really difficult question, you know? How do you deal with a history that the entire world condemns? Is that kind of loyalty the only option? Well, as it turns out, there's another branch on this family tree, and their answer was radically different. Let's talk about Bettina Göring. She's Hermann Göring's grandniece. Now, she was born after the war, so she didn't know the man. She only knew the name. And for her, that name was a curse. So unlike Edda, who saw the name as a link to a loving father, Bettina saw it as a psychological burden. She completely rejected the family story. Instead of loyalty, she felt this crushing weight of shame and responsibility. For her, the name wasn't an identity, it was a heavy chain. And those feelings led her to make a decision that is, well, it's pretty shocking. A decision she and her brother made together. They decided to end the Göring line permanently. Why would they do something so drastic? Her reason was simple.
and haunting. She wanted to make sure that no new Görings would ever be born. She didn't want any future generation to have to live under what she called the shadow of Göring. It was a conscious choice to just stop the bloodline, to sever the future from the past.
So now we have these two legacies, right? Two women from the same family taking two completely opposite paths, all because of one single inescapable name.
And it really boils down to this. You've got Edda, the daughter. Her path was all about loyalty and preservation. She was going to defend the memory of the father she knew. Then you have Bettina, the grandniece. Her path was about rejection and severance. She literally ended the family line just to escape its shadow. It's an incredible story, and it leaves us with this really heavy question. What is the right way to carry a legacy that's indefensible? Is it even possible? And it makes you wonder, can the sins of our ancestors ever really be left behind? Or should they?
Follow and subscribe.